So, Star Trek Discovery had what they call a second season. Alright, let's talk about that. But first, I have to tell you that there are spoilers coming. Overall, there are a ton of things to like and to love about Star Trek Discovery Season 2. For starters, the performances were pretty dang good. And by good, I mean stellar. Ensign Mount as the dreamy starship captain was dreamy.
I'm here at Starfleet's order to take command of the Discovery under Regulation 19, Section C.
Seriously, he's like a delicious bowl of vanilla ice cream with vanilla sprinkles. Doug Jones continues to take Saru in exciting new directions.
Your lies no longer work on me.
Michelle Yeoh is one big ball of sizzling sarcasm.
When if Burnham checks in, we need to know immediately, okay? I'm really busy.
Shazad Latif and Shazad Latif's beard were believably bristly.
That's a torchbearer's job. Whether he be human, Klingon, or both.
Sonequa Martin Green gives it everything.
I realize now that you are my family, Saru.
Wilson Cruz.
You have to let me go.
Mary Wiseman.
You would be doing a donut in a starship.
Ethan Peck as Spock.
I like science.
The deadest pan of Tig Notaro.
You don't know me, Doc. I'm uninsultable.
And the emotional porcupine that is Paul Stamets.
Please, let us know what you think, because we care.
Played by none other than Anthony Rapp. Basically, the performances were great. We have no complaints about how the performers brought these characters to life. Even this bucket of science-y smugness, who was killed horrifically without so much as a farewell card. He did a very good job of being smug and entitled. Good job, jerk. The visual effects are some of the best in the business. Seamless and ever-present and snuggled into places you'd least expect. This is the best looking Star Trek show we've ever had. Full stop. No, not like that. Sorry, it's this thing. The insanely cool sets, the locations, the uniforms and costumes. Those updated classic uniforms look really swell, by the way. And the score? Oh yes, the score. Everything was fantastic. Well, except for this one important thing. While we got some genuinely great moments and concepts in Discovery's second season, the planet Terra Elysium in New Eden, the introduction to Kaminar and the Baul, the ancient sentient planetoid, the dead Klingon babies. Wait, strike that. Sorry, wrong list. That goes on a shopping list. Huh? There seems to be some kind of writing imbalance. There is too much happening so that watching it at times can be exhausting. It's like an overly stuffed Marvel sausage. Whether this imbalance led to pacing issues, or pacing issues led to imbalance, or whether some master checklist of must-have items coming down from studio heads and showrunners forced writers into a corner, it's hard to say. The changeover in showrunners certainly couldn't have helped. Or maybe it did. How can us common folk really know?
If you're going to pose as a commoner, you should do it properly.
The whole behind-the-scenes thing will make a great documentary someday, I imagine. This overstuffing of the story is a detraction, but the story structure also focused hard on plot twists and reveals. Maybe one of those checklist items coming down from on high was to have starship-shattering reveals and plot twists. Let's shock the audience. The show maybe leaned too hard into teasing these surprises, like teasing the arrival of Spock coming out of a shuttlecraft when he, instead, turned out to be former Emperor Georgiou. It really felt like we were being led by the nose into these specific moments.
Commander.
We didn't need that hard of a tease for Spock, or setting up so ardently for all the plot twists and surprises throughout the season.
Mom?
Having that be your primary driver as a storytelling mechanism is not as much fun as it sounds. When you're worried about checking a plot twist reveal item off of your list, it tends to warp the story and the characters around that moment.
No, I am your father.
But generally speaking, things in Discovery Season 2 just happen too quickly. As soon as a subplot was introduced, it would resolve abruptly. New plot elements came in quick and fast.
Elementary, it is solved.
We would say to the writers, it's okay to slow down.
Slow down.
Maybe stretch things out some more. Do some yoga. Take a walk in the park. Have some wine. Watch a pitch drop experiment. You can keep all the stuff you have in the story, but go half the speed. Working with the material that's there in Season 2, it is very possible to get more emotional story mileage out of the bones of the story. Which brings us to our theory or thesis for Discovery's Season 2. Our theory is that all the ideas that are being played with in this season can work, but it was all just stuffed into too short a space of time and organized in a way that railroads the viewer down the path toward twisty reveals and surprises. Those story bones and characters just need more breathing room. That's all. And maybe some reorganization.
I gotta get organized.
For example, one of the bits of reorganization that might have made for stronger storytelling would have been to open the entire of Season 2 with Captain Pike in the Time Crystal Cave. That's right, open right up on Pike's most difficult decision ever. He can handle it. He's Captain Pike. This might immediately give us a tragic wrinkle in time to know what we know about him, about his future. And it would share something private with the audience that we get to be in on as we see him later on screen. It also makes that whole conversation about faith versus science that he has with Michael Burnham a lot more impactful. Captain Pike understanding something of his own future is tragic. And in this case, tragic works well for this character, which is something Discovery got right this season.
Let your friends go. It's the only way.
Another bit that could be moved around to better effect is having this scene show up episodes earlier than it did. This is Ariam's daily routine of wiping her unneeded memories of the day, an activity that is also laced with tragedy. Getting to know the other members of the bridge crew is one of the smartest things the show has done this season, and putting this moment of Ariam conducting this unusual ritual of hers as soon as possible in the season might let us get to know Ariam without any nefarious purposes. Also, sporadically placing these other flashback scenes from Ariam's memories of her hanging out with crew members, sharing a laugh, sprinkling those throughout the season without trying to force the audience to care for her would go much further towards humanizing her. Going slow, like making it so that Ariam is slowly introduced over the course of several episodes, this makes it so that we would never see her death coming later on, as opposed to how it actually happened in Season 2, where we finally get to meet Ariam in the same episode in which she dies. Doing it that way fell flat. It did not have the emotional impact I think the writers were aiming for, which is a waste of a great performance. Another thing that could be reorganized to better effect is meeting the sentient planetoid. Let's meet that guy right in the first episode, and let's sit with that sentient planetoid for several episodes, instead of pushing it all into one episode. The sentient planetoid was a very important part of the story, so we should sit with it for the first half of the season even, watching the crew slowly unravel its secrets, watching Saru slowly succumb to his death transformation process, Vaharai, instead of shoving all of that into a single episode. By the way, nobody expected Saru to die from Vaharai. That twist where he survives could have been made more serviceable if his condition lasted for a longer period of time, over several episodes. Maybe with enough time to see the end coming, Saru would travel back home and activate the Baul subplot, another area of story that should have lasted longer. The Baul Kelpian stuff was excellent. This is another area Discovery got right.
No one is safer than under the watchful eye. Return the Kelpian to us, and we will allow you to leave without harm.
I am not yours to be returned!
And speaking of stretching things out to allow for breathing room, the Red Angel story element, the main point of Season 2, didn't quite satisfy as an element of mystery. At some point, an honest curiosity about what the Red Angel was doing transformed into questions solely about who the Red Angel was. And at that point, the mystery didn't really matter so much. The audience was guessing left and right. Was it Saru? Was it the Borg Queen? Was it Harry Mudd? Was it a Tribble that would go on to meet Captain Kirk? Each episode led us down a path of guessing identity, so much that it often overshadowed other elements of each episode. That's not fun. Maybe a way to make it fun would be to stretch out the Red Angel storyline across the entire Discovery series so that we see them only once or twice a season. Sort of like how Star Trek Voyager had its journey home as the main directive of the series.
I want you to come with me. We will deal with this later.
Give us time to deliberate on the speculations instead of rushing headlong into the next plot reveal. So yeah, slow down, stretch it out, take your time. That's our takeaway. It's very possible that doing this alone will make the story already told in Season 2 that much more impactful. It'll certainly let us get to know the characters more. Think more Game of Thrones pacing and less Marvel Universe.
Without Littlefinger and Ramsay and the rest, I would have stayed a little bird all my life.
In Game of Thrones, we get to know the characters very well. That's what we want as an audience, to connect with character. In Discovery, there are so many pieces moving around, explosions, so much plot churning, episode to episode, that it feels like we don't know these characters very strongly yet. We haven't spent any real time with them yet. We don't know their favorite ice cream.
I never met a chocolate I didn't like.
Their hobbies, their frustrations. The cast is great. Let those actors work. Also, just one more thing to say about Discovery as a whole. So far, focusing on Spock and Enterprise is cool sometimes, but the nostalgia button got pressed maybe one too many times this season. Many fans are not interested in returning to the 23rd century. No one wants to see prequels anymore. We've been burned out on them for a while.
Your support is well seen.
The audience didn't care to see Spock as a character specifically. Most of the fans would like to see some new stuff, or at the very least return to where we left off in the 24th century. But focusing so hard on Spock and teasing Spock, and Spock has a surprise sister, and now we have to explain why Spock never talked about his sister, all that is exhausting. It's not interesting. Having a human character raised by Vulcans is interesting. There are dramatic questions that can be asked there, stuff about the nature of human emotion, perfect Vulcan-human territory. But why does it need to be Spock's family? What's the question that we're compelled to ask and answer there? I still don't know. Maybe Spock's inclusion was just a way for the show to say,
"Hey, look! It's Star Trek!"
We know that this is a Star Trek show. It has all the hallmarks of a Trek show. Hell, it even says Star Trek in the title. We get it. Reminding us by leaning so hard into it is distracting. I'm looking at you, Tribble. However, there is a balance to be had. In some ways, this leaning into canon stuff worked. Take Captain Pike, for example. This is the best Captain Pike we've seen, and we've had some great ones. Season 2 added a lot to Pike's story, and for my mileage, it was all satisfying. In many ways, the episode where we go to Talos 4 and meet the Talosians again and see Vina, it can be argued that this episode might have been one of the highlights of the whole season. So, there is a way to engage canon and what's come before. Maybe the difference is that we already know a whole bunch about Spock, and inventing a sibling relationship just to include Spock into the show is a bit convoluted and felt artificial. But Pike is still a largely unknown but distantly familiar character to us. He was basically a blank slate compared to Spock. There was room for dramatic questions about Pike that made sense for his character. Just a thought. Now, we've said it here before, others have said it too. Discovery will continue to get better. And we are patient. This franchise teaches us patience.
You'll soon understand patience.
And we've only seen 2 seasons so far. Remember the first 2 seasons of The Next Generation?
Ugly, giants, bags of mostly water.
There were gems, certainly, but overall, The Next Generation had to grow into what it was to become. And those first 2 seasons were a rough journey showing us that growth.
Life Force, do you understand us?
The 3rd season, everyone mostly agrees, is where TNG totally grew its beard, so to speak.
I think for now circumstances warrant caution, nothing more. As you wish, Captain.
The same can be said for any Star Trek spin-off.
Where are you going? With you. I've been studying my tricorder operations manual.
It takes a moment for these shows to hit their stride, to find the balance they need to tell stories in this franchise. And don't forget, this is still Star Trek. This franchise has, somehow, even at the height of its powers, managed to pull Spock's brain out of his head and then put it back in.
His brain is gone.
It moved along home when it really shouldn't have.
Shap 2, move along home!
It gave us various shades of gray.
Do we have a choice?
No.
And the greatest rock ballad in Starfleet history.
It's been a long road, getting from there to here.
And killed off a beloved captain by throwing him onto a bridge. It's the other way around, actually. It leaned so hard into racist and sexist stereotypes sometimes as to be almost unwatchable in places.
I see. You too understand the proper value of women.
There are starships birthing life forms, a tenuous, often ridiculous relationship to science, and oftentimes, great big slices of ham.
I'm Captain Kirk!
But for every bundle of salamander babies that we're given, we also get an android in a courtroom, a holo novel about holographic rights, a Dyson sphere, a city on the edge of forever, White Walkers before White Walkers were a thing, and a bunch of really cool science fiction and societal commentary that are the hallmarks of the franchise. My point is this. The timeline of good and bad Star Trek is not linear.
Linear time. What is this?
It's all mixed up. And Discovery is a little bit of a microcosm of this dynamic. They are trying really hard to get it right. And they will get it right. Season 2 is better than Season 1. And I expect Season 3 to be the best yet. For those of you on the fence about this newest Trek, try to look at Discovery's first 2 seasons as one great big prologue. Trust me, because we are about to head to a space where we have never been before. The Discovery crew is some 900 years in their future by the end of Season 2. That's a space that we know truly nothing about.
This is not what I signed up for!
Before we close, I want to offer a quick update on our goings-on with the channel. We'd love to do more. More videos, more content, more video essays and reviews and interviews. But in order to do that, we need your help. Plain and simple, it takes money to make this channel happen. It takes dollars and cents. To buy the digital tools, to purchase music, to get the expertise to do this or to make that, to do research, and especially to do the editing. If you find any value in the topics we discuss here, and understanding where toxic fandom might come from, and how the Star Trek franchise talks about personhood or parenthood, or how it echoes ancient literature, or how science fiction connects with our modern lives, then consider supporting us. Help us create more Trexpertise. You can do so by visiting us on Patreon. How much do you give? Well, that's up to you. Every little bit helps us to create better expertise, to tackle bigger topics, and create better visuals. The average monthly donation seems to be between $1 and $3. And we can say that if our Patreon hits a minimum of $1,100 a month, we can promise a minimum of 2 video essays a month, not including any reviews or other styles of videos like this one. More videos at a regular interval? You know that's what you want. So consider supporting us. Help us make Trexpertise the corner of the web for Star Trek and science fiction analysis. Link is in the subspace below. If you'd like to be notified when the next essay lands, then subscribe, turn on notifications, and especially sign up for our no-nonsense email list. The email list is the most efficient method. Again, you can find all the relevant links down in the subspace below. Thank you. See you soon.
遠い将来を考えてみようよ。